Hello there, Hollows, and welcome to another video. I know it's been a bit of time away for me, but I'm back now, and I mainly wanted to make this video mainly because I wanted to let you all know that I'm not dead. I'm still making videos, but of course I'm just gonna make a random channel update video. I'm not like that, so I've come back with a purpose. Lately I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy a lot because it's a game that I never finished, and alongside it I've been playing Doom, the original 1993 Doom, because I'm hoping to try and make a proper full-length critical, well, I'm already halfway through writing it, so I'm definitely making a full-length critical analysis of the game. Hopefully it'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks on the channel, but one thing that I really noticed when I've been playing these two games side by side is the problems with modern video games and how I'd say games in some ways have got better. Yes, technologically and graphically games have gotten better, and they can make games now on a bigger scale that look fantastic, look almost as good as real life. But there's something about all the games that I find is just better in many ways, and this video is going to be talking about the problems with modern video games. Now, the first point that I would like to raise is that games nowadays, they really want to hold your hand, and this is something that I really dislike, and it's the main thing that I've really noticed whilst playing these two games back to back, Hogwarts Legacy and Doom. Is in Hogwarts Legacy, the game, yes, on paper it looks like you've got a lot of freedom, but whenever you're doing a mission or a quest or something in this game, the game is constantly holding your hand, and you have to walk down a predetermined path a lot of the time. You have to do certain things at certain points, mainly in the story missions, which is why I really don't like the story missions. I rather just explore the world, but even then the game wants to hold your hand a lot when you're doing these side missions. It does. It wants you to do certain things at a certain time, and if you try and really experiment or change things up or try and do things in a different order, you can't usually. You can't go back to previous rooms or whatever. You can't try and go around a certain area. You're walking down a predetermined path with very little freedom, which is the opposite of the other game I'm playing, Doom, which is the first real first-person shooter game, or one of the first first-person shooter games. And in that game, you're very much in an environment, and you can approach the problems ahead of you from any number of different perspectives. You can try and approach things in different ways using the tools in this sandbox that the game developers have built for you. It's very much a different kind of experience, and I know, yes, it's because they're different genres. One is a different kind of game to the other one, but I think on paper there's a lot of things here which are definitely relevant. Now, another one which, and it's not really relevant for Doom, I suppose it is in a way, is that in Hogwarts Legacy, characters, they always need to feel the need to give you hints on what to do. This is something that was also present in the recent Resident Evil 4 remake, which really frustrated me. When you were going around with Ashley, she would often give you hints on how to solve the puzzles in the game. Even if they were very simple, she still would be telling you basically the solution. And in Resident Evil 7 as well, which is another recent game, if you failed a certain section, the loading screens would often give you hints on how to solve puzzles, which is something else that I really hated. It's something that really is cropping up in games recently, when your characters are constantly blurting out things which are blatantly obvious just because they feel the need to make sure that the player understands what they need to do so they don't get stuck, so they don't get bored, so they don't turn off the game. It is another thing which is constantly coming up in games nowadays, where games, they're trying to keep you playing because they want to give you frequent dopamine fixes, which gets into the next point, where a lot of games nowadays are built to give you these frequent dopamine fixes so you don't turn off the game, so you feel like you keep needing to play, and it leads into the sort of chemical things in your brain, which I really don't like, is when games are trying to get like that. It's something the Call of Duty franchise is absolutely terrible for, and they've even managed to get it in their multiplayer, which I mentioned in another one of my recent videos, where they've made it so even in multiplayer you're constantly getting just enough dopamine to keep wanting to keep playing and keep being invested and keep not turning off the game. Because in Call of Duty's multiplayer mode, they've managed to make it so the skill-based matchmaking system in that game, in that multiplayer, knows that if you've done bad in one match, it makes the next lobby for you easier, so you've got more of a chance of getting kills, so that way you keep playing constantly, and it's got this constant cycle, which I really hate. And that's the reason why in Call of Duty as well, the next match often starts almost straight away. It throws you into another lobby really quickly, so you're not on the menu, for that long, because the longer you're on the menu, the more likely you are to get distracted by something else in your life, and therefore turn off the game and do something else. There are so many subtle, egregious practices in the Call of Duty franchise nowadays. It's absolutely awful. And to get back to the other games that I was talking about as well, like Doom, for example. In Doom 1993, the original one, in that game, there isn't these kind of frequent dopamine fixes built into the game, because the game knows that it's got a good enough level design and it's got a good enough gameplay loop to keep you wanting to play the game anyway. Even Doom Eternal, if we want to look at the most recent Doom game, it's a similar thing. It doesn't have these kind of practices in the game where it wants you to keep playing with these dopamine fixes. It doesn't make the game easier to accommodate the player. It doesn't feel like it doesn't almost treat the player like they're a child. It allows the player to think, okay, this player is going to get better, it's going to understand the combat, they're going to get better by playing and dying more and more and learning from their experiences and getting better, which therefore is going to make them want to keep playing the game, as opposed to these kind of things where it's like, oh yeah, like the Call of Duty franchise, we don't want them to turn off the game, so we're going to quickly throw them into another game. And if they're doing bad, we're going to put them in easier lobbies so they feel like they can, so they feel like they're getting better when actually they're not. And this is a terrible practice, which I really don't like. And this is also leaning into the next topic as well, which is adaptive difficulty, which is there I was talking about multiplayer games, but the same thing also happens, like I mentioned, in other games. Like Resident Evil 4 is another example of this, going back to another game I was talking about. The Resident Evil 4 remake has adaptive difficulty, where the game makes itself easier if you start struggling. It gives you more ammo, it gives you more tools to defeat the enemies in front of you, which is something else that I really don't like, and is something that the Dark Souls franchise is really good at, where it never ever does that. It never feels like it needs to give you more things to get past the challenges ahead of you. Instead, you need to get better. You need to work yourself to get better at the game mechanics and understand the game to allow you to get past these things that are in front of you, these obstacles that are ahead of you. And I think these are just some of the problems in modern video games. And I think the Call of Duty campaigns are probably the worst example of all of these practices altogether, I think. In the Call of Duty campaigns, they're very much scripted experiences where you press certain buttons at certain times and certain things happen. You're never really getting better at anything. You're never really getting more skilled at anything. The game just wants you to experience certain things, press the trigger at certain places, but it takes control away from the player all the time. And this is something else I hate in modern games, when control is constantly taken away from the player all the time. You constantly, the game just does things for you. It almost puts you in cutscenes where your character is moving around and you don't have any control. I always hate that. And again, the Dark Souls franchise and the Doom games are very good at this, where they don't really take control away from the player. You're constantly moving through them. And Doom Eternal is a fantastic example of this, where it very rarely ever takes control away from you. You can always usually move your character in some way. Even there are occasional cinematic cutscenes in that game, but it very rarely takes control away from you. The Dark Souls franchise, again, very rarely takes control away from you. But then if you play like the recent Call of Duty campaigns, it's like every 2 seconds the game is taking control away from the player and making you do things you can't do. It slows you down to a walking speed. You can't sprint. You have to walk alongside this person. It's really terrible at that. And yeah, so I think I've talked enough about the problems with modern video games. I know I've mentioned a couple of these points in recent videos on my channel, but I think I wanted to make a video that's not just tied to the Dark Souls franchise about this kind of stuff, because this channel, I think, I'm looking to move this channel away from just being about Dark Souls, I think, because I've noticed that a lot of people on my channel, they mainly like my analysis videos, which makes sense because, of course, that is the bread and butter of my channel. I started my channel, well, people found my channel from my Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 analysis videos, my very long, lengthy analysis videos on those games, and I think I would like to try and push towards more analysis videos. Not necessarily just 2.5-hour analysis videos on a game or another game, but also videos like this, talking in general about things in the game industry, problems in the game industry, and things that can be related to lots of different games. I think we can all, a lot of people on this channel like games that, you know, allow you to have constant control of your character, and they don't get easier for you, and you have to rise to the challenge, because a lot of people on this channel have come from the Dark Souls franchise. So I think a lot of people seem to like my perspective on games because of that, because I like the Dark Souls franchise. So I think you'll all appreciate my takes on other games, so hopefully that is something you'll all relate to. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe even share this video with anyone you think might enjoy it if the video was good enough. Thank you again for watching. This is Soul Reborn, signing out. Have a good one.